Hello everyone. Today's presentation will be about a project that we have developed recently with my friend. The project's name is GhostBeacon and it is used for hunting for rogue access points in .11 networks. And if you would like to check out the GitHub page of this project, you can find the link in below. Okay, so who am I? My name is Anıl Çelik. I am from Turkey. I'm currently working as a cybersecurity engineer at Havelsan, which is a major defense industry company in Turkey. I'm a computer engineer and also studying Master of Science on Information Security Engineering. My primary work areas are red teaming and purple teaming, and I'm currently holding 60 days and also OSCP and OSWP certifications. And this is my GitHub handle if you would like to check it out.
And hello everyone, I am Emre Odaman. I have been working as a cybersecurity engineer at Havelsan since 2021. I started working when I was a student and then I kept on working full time. I'm a computer engineering graduate and I am particularly interested in red teaming, purple teaming, network attacks, network security, and other various areas of cybersecurity. And my GitHub handle is as written on the screen. So let me introduce our uh, presentation by. So our agenda for this presentation is first we'll start with introduction and why did we do it, with some explanation on current threat landscape, the architecture of our tool GhostBeacon, and we will follow up with a live demo, and then we will talk about what are the limitations of our tool, what will we improve upon the future roadmap, and we'll end with a QA section. Let me introduce with the common attack vectors on .11 networks. The most common attack vector for attacking Wi-Fi networks is the well-known deauthentication attack, which is also the main component of many other attack chains such as evil twins, honeypots, handshake capture attacks. While none of these attacks strictly require deauthentication, it is used almost always for practical reasons. With this method, the attacker will effectively disconnect the client from the access point. But what does it achieve? This is just denial of service, but after a client disconnects from the original access point, it will try to reconnect and reassociate to the access point. This is where the previously mentioned attacks occur. The attacker can spin up an access point with the same network name, commonly known as evil twin, and if they are comparatively close enough to the victim than the access point, by means of signal strength, not physical distance, the client will try to associate it to the set twin controlled by the attacker. The set twin can serve several purposes. First, it might not be protected with encryption such as WPA, and the client will not have to provide a key. This might serve as a man-in-the-middle router for attacker for eavesdropping on the traffic or modifying it transparently. It might serve as a phishing lure for redirecting the user to reveal their information or credentials, or download or execute malware. Or it might just serve as a common network for the attacker to access the victim, just like a rendezvous point, to exploit vulnerabilities of the victim only accessible via adjacent network connectivity on higher network layers. Or the evil twin can be used to attack .1x enterprise networks by luring the clients to the malicious network. If the clients are not configured correctly for enforcement of correct certificates, the clients will try to authenticate to the radio server controlled by the attacker, and therefore providing their credentials to the attacker, and if the strong encryption for authentication is not enforced, those credentials can be obtained as plain text. While most clients provide only hashes for authentication channel responses, for example MS-CHAP version 2, some clients directly provide plain text passwords for their accounts. And as a side note, a common trick I use on our penetration tests and security audits is that I spin up an evil twin of the enterprise network, put all the goodies in my backpack, and hang around the IT department. Maybe a separate building inside a campus, maybe a balcony where people go out for smoke breaks. If and when you can identify the grumpy system administrator guys, You can just bug them with simple questions to stall them while being close enough to gain privileged credentials. And with this simple trick, you can doubly hate the IT guys feel against you while obtaining domain admin credentials from the first day. So let's continue. Handshake grabbing attack also leverages the authentications, and again, not a strict requirement. But instead of waiting an indefinite time for some client to connect, the attackers simply disconnect an existing client to force it to reconnect and perform another handshake, which then the attacker can grab over thin air for offline brute force. With resources such as FPGA clusters, even exhaustive brute force of hashes of short passwords can be feasible for adversaries with sufficient motives. And the method used for the authentication attack is simple. Send the authentication frames to the client as if it was originating from the original access point. There are two main reasons for why this attack works. The first is Wi-Fi means radio, and radio is public domain. Radio signals are very similar to sound. As long as you're in the range, the attacker's signals will be heard by the victim and vice versa. And the second reason is that the management frames that manage the lower layers of communication, and namely authentication, deauthentication, association, disassociation, beacons and probes, were and still mostly unencrypted. Because of this, there are no mechanisms to verify the origin of the said frames, and any received frame is treated as genuine. The main precaution for the authentication attack vector is protected management frames, commonly abbreviated as PMF or MFP, which encrypts the management frames, therefore preventing attacks that leverage the authentication frames. It is mandatory for WPA3 and enhanced open networks, and all devices certified after July 2020 has to support WPA3 to receive Wi-Fi Alliance certification, therefore also supporting PMF. But there are many devices produced before this date in active use, and those devices might not support PMF or WPA3. Also, IoT devices produced after this date might use chipsets produced earlier, so they might still be vulnerable. And the same applies for homebrew IoT stuff too, as I have encountered many while conducting tests. And adoption of PMF is still lacking for many reasons. The access points might not support, as is the case for many enterprise networks built before this date, since reinstalling hundreds of access points in at least one building, let alone many in campus-like environments or remote sites, is a huge cost and mostly with no functional gains, since security is considered a non-functional aspect, and therefore most of the time it is not prioritized, and even that means it is at least considered without being discarded as acceptable risk. Also, the clients might not support it, so the access points provide PMF as optional, but not enforce it. This means that there are at least one client in the coverage area that is vulnerable. And the same also applies for WPA2-3 mixed mode too. And so there has been major events including Wi-Fi attacks for initial foothold state. Also some small-scale cyber criminals are covered by press time to time. For example, APT28 has used Wi-Fi to gain access to an organization by compromising another organization physically close to the actual target and leveraging Wi-Fi. Also, there has been an incident of a disrupted cyber attack against chemical weapon research facility as a part of a counterintelligence operation. There was an APT campaign involving compromisation of luxury hotel Wi-Fi networks targeting traveling high-profile targets, such as diplomats and executives, and to push malware disguised as fake software updates which install spyware on the victim machines to exfiltrate confidential information. There are also many incidents of cyber criminals caught red-handed with evil twins in public networks such as airports, hotels to steal information and credentials.
The next thing we will be talking about is that why did we do this project? And on that topic we will be talking about current threat landscape. As a penetration tester, we are dealing with many wireless network penetration testing projects in our everyday work, and when we are conducting a pen test on a wireless network, we are aware of that pen testing on a Wi-Fi network is not obtaining the password of the target network. We know that we need to show a comprehensive approach by covering all the key points that is related with this field, such as user-related controls, authentication attacks, hardware-related controls, inspecting the mechanisms that is present for wireless network security, and lastly, we need to be concerned about environmental threat analysis, which is today's topic. Wireless networks are often a soft entry point for threat actors, and nowadays they are still being targeted a lot. And what we see on the field is that the majority of the corporate networks are still depending on WPA2 security standard, because although WPA3 offers a more thorough security, the hardware that is in use are still has some compatibility issues, which means even one of the devices, the access point or the client itself, supports WPA3, it is still not enough, because both of the devices should support this newer security standard. When it is not the case, the devices are running on a fallback mechanism that causes the communication to be run on WPA2. Let's continue with management frame protection here, and let me show you a sample frame from Wireshark. And another important point to be concerned on is this, the management frame protection, also known as protected management frames, and it is a security feature presented in IEEE.11 Wi-Fi standard back in 2009, and it's recently got some updates, like back in 2020. Firstly, we need to explain what management frames are. Management frames are the class of frames that are responsible for managing the communication between the access point and the client. Maybe we can continue in here with basic .11 communication. Management frames control the operations such as beacon frames, probe request and probe response frames, authentication and association frames, and lastly, the authentication or these association frames are also in this frame class. The main problem in here is that these frames are critical, but in earlier Wi-Fi versions, what we mean by that, we mean pre.11w, they were sent as unencrypted, even if the network uses WPA2. This situation of course helped and still helping the attackers with spoofing the beacon frames so that they can create rogue access points, send fake the authentication frames to cause a denial of service attack, and also it helps attackers to launch man-in-the-middle attacks by tricking the clients into reconnecting to malicious access points. All these attack vectors can be named as evil twin attacks, and note that these are layer 2 attacks and invisible to most intrusion detection systems. Also, the role of management frame protection is encrypting and authenticating certain management frames to prevent spoofing or tampering on beacon frames and the authentication frames. As I mentioned earlier, the Wi-Fi standard got some updates recently back in 2020, and management frame protection for beacon frames were not present until that date. The management frame protection basically has 3 operating modes, such as disabled, optional, and required. When it is disabled, there will be no protection and the frames will be vulnerable to spoofing, and followed by that, attackers can conduct the authentication attacks, and by cloning and spoofing the beacon frames, they can open up some fake networks. When it is optional, clients may support management frame protection and the access points negotiates accordingly, but still the network could be vulnerable. And lastly, when it is required, only clients that supports the management frame protection can connect to the network. this security mechanism is mandatory on WPA3, but it is optional as on WPA2 networks. And now we can continue with evil twin attacks. Since we have covered some of the major risks on wireless networks, we can now explain the necessity of this project. When we are dealing with environmental threat analysis during wireless network pen tests, one of the things that we need to examine is the target corporate area to see whether they are being targeted by some evil twin attack. As you can see in this image, in evil twin attacks, the attackers push the beacon frames of the network that they are targeting by simply sniffing the air, and they set up a fake access point and basically forces the victim to be connected on this fake access point to steal network credentials. And we will be covering the details of this attack in the next slides. And when we are hunting for fake access points in the area, it can be overwhelming to analyze all the access points in the environment and separate these fake access points through the legitimate ones. That is why we needed an automated solution to accomplish this process. Okay, so next thing we need to talk about is the architecture of GhostBeacon. This is the GitHub page of this project, and please feel free to check it out for more detailed information, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me through my links that is placed in my GitHub profile. So this is the overview of the main menu of this project, and as you can see, it has primarily two modules, such as rogue or fake access point spotter and hidden access point spotter. And let me show you the main execution flow and the main menu. Firstly, the program checks out whether the dependencies are installed on your computer or the virtual machine that you are running on. If the dependencies are not installed, don't worry, the program will automatically install all the dependencies that is needed to run the program. After installing the dependencies, the program will check it out whether you have a wireless card present, and if that's the case, which means if you have a wireless card plugged into your computer, then the program will not proceed without setting the wireless card into monitor mode first, because in order to sniff the packets in the area, firstly your wireless card needs to be in monitor mode. So after setting the wireless card to monitor mode, which is done automatically by the program, and you will be redirected to select one of the modules that is placed in this program. Let me get back to it. Okay, so let me first tell you about the workflow of the first module, which is the rogue access point spotter. When you select the fake access point spotter option, firstly the program asks you to input a target SSID, and when you input such SSID, let's say X Wi-Fi, also the program will ask you to enter a time interval to sniff the beacon frames in the area, and when you submit those two values, the program will start to sniff for beacon frames in the area and list all the unique BSSID values, which are the MAC addresses of the access points. The program will detect and save all the unique access points in the area and will give you a list. Then the comparison begins. The main thing, the first thing that the program will check is whether the target access point has an open encryption. What we mean by that is that the fake access points tend to almost always has open encryption to treat the users to be connected to rogue access points automatically, because if the target fake access point would have an encryption, then the victims wouldn't be able to connect to these access points automatically. The next thing we should be careful about is that the uptime value. When you are dealing with an fake access point, it generally has a uptime value that is closer to current time. What I mean by that, the original access point would have a bigger uptime value than the fake ones, because usually if you are not restarting the access point on purpose, or the access point is not set to be reboot itself, it usually has a larger uptime value than the fake ones. And what we are checking here is that we are checking the minimum uptime value, and if the target BSSID or the target access point has minimum uptime, then the next thing we need to check is the signal strength, because due to .11 protocol's nature, due to the radio frequency nature of the radio frequency, the clients are tend to connect to closer access points, and in here we are checking that whether the target access point has the closest signal, and if that's the case, then we can take this target access point as a 99% rogue access point. And as you can see on the rest of the schema, and if the target access point does not have the closest signal, and we are giving the warning that says access point is open and has minimum uptime, high chances to be a rogue access point. And let's roll back to open encryption. Let's roll back to minimum uptimes no option. If the target access point does not have the minimum uptime value, then we are again checking the signal strength, and if the access point does not have the minimum uptime value but has the closest signal, and then we are telling that access point is open and has closest signal, high chances to be a rogue access point. And if that's not the case, we are just warning the user to tell that access point is open, might be a rogue access point. Let's roll back to open encryption thing. If the target's access point does not have an open encryption, which is a big warning for us to see that we are detecting a false positive thing, we are continuing with minimum uptime calculation again. If the target access point has minimum uptime and has the closest signal, we are telling that access point has encryption, but it has minimum uptime and closest signal, high chances to be a rogue access point. And if it doesn't have the closest signal, we are telling that access point has encryption but has minimum uptime. Consider checking your asset list. And lastly, if the target does not have the closest signal, does not have the minimum uptime, then we are checking the closest signal value. And if that's the case, we are telling that access point has encryption but it has closest signal, then we are simply telling that the users should consider checking their asset list. And finally it doesn't have the closest signal, we are telling that it is high chances to be a false positive. When you consider all of these things, and when we test these parameters on the field, we saw that we are 99% close to detect these rogue access points when we do the necessary tests on the field. And finally, this is the rogue access point spotter module, the menu. Don't worry, we will be covering all the things that is happening in here on the live demo part, so that you can see all the functionalities. Next thing we need to see that is the hidden access point spotter workflow, and this is the second module in this tool. So when you select this module, the program firstly asks you to input a time interval to listen the beacon frames in the area, and when you input that, the program starts to sniff the beacon frames with empty SSID value or beacon frames with null bytes inside its SSID field. What I mean by that, when you are dealing with hidden access point, the beacon frames that is being broadcasted from that access point will have two different options. One of the options is that the SSID field is empty on the beacon frame, or it will have null bytes for each character that is on the SSID field. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a SSID value that is hidden and it has a 5 character length, then the beacon frame will have 5 null byte values inside the SSID field, and one null byte is 1 backslash and 3 zeros. And let's say the program has detected such beacon frame, and the program will collect all the unique BSSID values in the area and will start to sniff for probe response packets. Because probe response packets has to send the SSID information to the client, and when you set an access point to hide its SSID information, you are basically telling that access point to hide its SSID information on the broadcasted packets, which are the beacon frames. And when you need to send your SSID information, the probe response packets are the only way that you can do it. In here we are waiting for probe response packets to be caught, and if probe response packets has been caught by the program proceeds with comparing the BSSID and channel number comparison with the target BSSID, and if this information matches, then we can successfully obtain the hidden SSID value with 100% accuracy, because we are checking the probe response packet itself, and we are comparing it with the unique BSSID value and the channel that is broadcasting its network on. And lastly, this is the menu for hidden access point spotter module, and note that we will also be covering this on the live demo. Okay, now let's continue with the live demo. Let's roll back to Kali. Firstly, you need to download this tool from its GitHub page, and in order to do that, you need to do git clone and this URL, and I have already downloaded it. When you check out the directory, you will see a couple of files in here. The first one is the tools Python file itself, the beacons folder, and the resources folder. The beacons folder will hold the CSV files that will be generated by the tool while we are running it, and the resources folder is holding some screenshots and other files that are being used in the GitHub page. Let's run the tool right now. Python 3 GhostBeacon.py, and when you run the tool, the program will firstly check the dependencies, whether they are installed or not in here. The dependencies are already installed on my virtual machine, so the program is okay to continue. Then the program will check the wireless interfaces, which means the wireless card plugged into your virtual machine or your computer. And in here, my wireless network card is in managed mode, and you need to put this wireless card into monitor mode in order to continue. So I'm selecting yes. After putting it into monitor mode, you need to select the module. Let's continue with the first module, which is the fake access point spotter. After selecting this, an AeroDump NG window is spawning to show you the access points nearby. We will be using this legit Wi-Fi network, so we will be entering it as an SSID value. Right now what we are trying to do is this legit Wi-Fi network is being used legitimately by the users around, and we are just suspecting that there is a rogue access point nearby, and we want to control it, so we are running it. And we need to enter a duration for listening the beacon frames around. Let's say 30 seconds, and it's listening for beacons. And when it will detect some unique BSSID values around, it will list them right away. As you can see, it's found two unique BSSID values. The first one is this one, and the second one is this one. After beacon reading is done, the program is checking the things that we have mentioned on the workflow automatically, and as you can see in here, the first SSID listed in here has an open encryption, has a closer power strength value, the signal strength, and its uptime value is much lesser than the second one. As you can see in here, the MAC addresses are pretty similar to each other, but when you check out the other information in here, the program is pretty good at spotting the fake access point in here. So let's continue with the second module. Now let's continue with the second module, which is the hidden access point spotter. Let's run our program again. So as you can see, our network interface card, wireless network interface card is in monitor mode again. So we managed mode, and we need to put it into monitor mode again. So let's select yes, and let's go with the second option in here. And you need to enter a time interval again to listen the beacon frames around. So there will be another AeroDump NG window spawning, and if there is any hidden access point around, and if its beacon frame has been spotted by the program, you will see it in here. So let's wait for a little bit. As you can see, there is a hidden access point has been spotted, and the second one is in here. Now the program is hunting for the probe response packets in the area. We are waiting for a probe response packets to be caught by the program. Yes, as you can see, there are some probe response packets caught in the area, but they are not belong to a hidden access point. And when the program captures a probe response packet which belongs to a hidden access point, it's matching its BSSID information and the channel information in here and giving you the hidden access points SSID value. You should be not here in that this process catching the probe response frames can be note that there are some limitations in here in the second module related with SCP's speed of packet parsing, and we will be mentioning about those limitations in the next slides. Let's continue with limitations and roadmap. For rogue access point spotter module, we are planning to include some improvements on this module, like we can add some additional detection mechanisms such as average uptime calculation, and also we can calculate the TX, the strength median, for a better approximation. One of the big things that we are planning to add is that the organizational unique identifier, the OUI, support to separate rogue access points from their vendor information, and we are planning to add a captive portal detection mechanism to separate fake access points better, and certificate inspection mechanism can be included for .1x or the enterprise networks, in other words, can be included. Also, we are planning to include the authentication attack mechanism to conduct denial of service attacks against suspicious access points. And lastly, we are planning to calculate a similarity check for SSIDs having similar values to the original SSID value. For hidden access point spotter module, we are also planning to include some additional capabilities in here, like we can divide this module into two sections such as passive reconnaissance and active reconnaissance. While passive reconnaissance will keep probe response analysis, we will add additional features for passive listening to enhance the strength of packet parsing capabilities. And also in active reconnaissance section, we will include the authentication attacks to force connected clients for disconnecting them from the target hidden access point, by the way, if there is any, and make them reconnect to the access point again. And the only limitation we have in here is that SCP's packet parsing speed. Due to SCP's capabilities, right now some probe response frames might be lost, and this can affect the performance on this module. And finally, if you have any questions, you can always reach us through our social media accounts. Thank you for listening and have a great day.